You signed a deal with Company A, so why are you suddenly dealing with Company B? If you're not attentive to assignment, novation, and transfer clauses, then you could lose control over who you're doing business with, and when that happens, your risk profile can change fast. I'm Mike, founder of Starlit Contracts, where we help you to negotiate and use contracts with confidence. We're looking at assignment, novation, and transfers in this video. To summarize, such clauses describe when and how a contract party's rights and obligations may transfer to a different party. There are differences to the meaning of assignment, novation, and transfer, depending on the law that applies to your deal. However, the word assignment is often used to describe the transfer of rights from one contract party to a third party. For example, I might assign my contractual right to be paid for the work that I do. The word novation is often used to describe the transfer of obligations. For example, I might have a contractual obligation to do certain work, and we might agree that I can transfer that obligation to a third party. The word transfer is often used to describe the transfer of rights, obligations, or both, which is how I will use it in this video. How does this work in practice? Contract parties will often agree that if either of them intend to transfer rights or obligations during performance of the contract, then they would need to get the other party's approval first. If the parties know before they sign the contract that one of them will need to transfer their rights or obligations, then they can set out their agreement to the transfer in the contract. Is this something that you should care about? That really depends on the specifics of your deal, and if you or the other party anticipate a need to transfer rights or obligations. If you're not sure, then think about the duration of your contract. It's more likely that you will require a transfer when you enter into a contract with a long duration. If your company has any plans to restructure or may be acquired by another company, then this also increases the chance that a transfer will be needed. Let's look at a practical example together. Recently acquired supplier limited signed a long-term contract with customer. 𝗔𝘀𝘀𝗶𝗴 Company Limited, let's call them the purchasing company, acquired the supplier, and it's now necessary for the supplier to transfer its contracts, staff and assets to the purchasing company. What could go right from the perspective of the supplier? Let's say that the supplier informed the customer during contract negotiations that there were companies who wanted to acquire them. The customer did their due diligence and accepted that the supplier may get acquired by another company, and, if that happens, then the supplier can transfer their contractual rights and obligations to the purchasing company, if needed. When the acquisition was finalized, the parties promptly signed a novation agreement with the purchasing company, and the contract proceeded without disruption to any party. But what could go wrong from the perspective of the customer? Let's say that the customer didn't know that the purchasing company was one of the parties who wanted to acquire the supplier, and they really don't want to work with them. Maybe the purchasing company doesn't have a good reputation, or they have a worse credit rating than the supplier, or perhaps they're a competitor of the customer. Unfortunately, having pre-agreed in the contract that the supplier can transfer their rights and obligations to the company who acquires them, there is a good chance that the customer is stuck with the purchasing company or will be in breach of the contract if they refuse to sign the novation agreement. Let's look at a sample clause and some key considerations. Here's our first option. Neither party can assign, novate, or transfer any part of this agreement to another party without the other party's written agreement. This sample clause is the safe option. It requires the party who wants to make a transfer to first get approval from the other contract party. Let's look at another option for how to approach this clause. A party can assign, novate, or transfer any part of this agreement to an affiliate upon written notice to the other party, provided the affiliate has an equivalent or better credit rating and they are not in dispute with or a competitor of the other party. The first point to note is that the clause anticipates a potential transfer to an affiliate of one of the parties. You can amend this clause to remove reference to an affiliate, if it's not applicable to you, and add the name of any other party to whom you might want to transfer rights or obligations. This clause sets a number of preconditions for a transfer to be permissible. The idea of having these preconditions is for the risk profile of the deal not to be impacted negatively by the transfer. Now let's look at your key takeaways. First, consider if you have any need for a transfer clause or if the contract can be silent on this topic. Next, remember that timing matters. Address the topic of a potential or actual transfer when your negotiating position is strongest. Finally, decide if a party needs pre-approval for a transfer, and if so, if any preconditions must be met. If you find this video helpful, then, for a short time, you can access the entire Build the Foundation in Contracts program for free by signing up for Silver membership at starlitcontracts.com. I look forward to seeing you there.